show is over. That was last night, and now I obviously still have plenty of stuff left. So I'm looking forward to listing a bunch of finished objects in my Etsy shop. For, I would say, the last 5 or 6 years, I've really focused on just patterns for my Etsy shop, and I don't normally sell many of my samples or finished objects. But truth be told, my knitting has surpassed the couple of, like, I have a large trunk in my bedroom, and I also have a large Rubbermaid container, and I kind of promised myself that I wouldn't let the unused knitted objects multiply more than what I can fit in those 2 containers, and they have far multiplied. So I thought I would go ahead and just start, selling some of my samples and some of my finished objects that my family just never was interested in. So I know that, if you're watching this podcast, it's probably because you're a knitter or a crocheter and you like to make things yourself. So I totally understand why you don't want to buy things that other people have knit or crocheted. But maybe you have family or friends that like to say, hey, can you make this for me? And you can be like, I don't want to make that for you, but why don't you look at this Etsy shop? And she has lots of things that you might like. So if you tell anybody about my Etsy shop, I very much appreciate it. So anyway, craft show stories. It went really well, and I haven't done a craft show in, I'm going to say, probably 8 or 9 years. And I really wasn't sure about this one. That honestly, besides the fact that I need to pare down my knitted things on hand, the other reason that I took a chance on it was because it was to support a charity that I like in my in the town I live in, and the table fee was not very high, so I thought, I need to sell one thing, and that's going to pay for my table fee. So I'll take a chance and see how it goes. It was the first year that this charity has done this craft show to help raise funds. So I really was I didn't know what the audience would be. I didn't know if it was well attended. It was on a Friday night instead of on a weekend. So it was only a 3-hour window, so I didn't know if that would go well. But as it turned out, it was fine. I sold, definitely sold enough to make it worth my while. And along the way, I thought of some things that I might be able to share. So I came up with a list of my 10 suggestions. If you are ever thinking about doing a craft show yourself, these are 10 things that I learned. Some of them are things I would do differently next time, and some are things that I'm glad I did this time. So thing number 1, and I think this is the most important thing on my list, is have a helper. I was lucky my mom volunteered to come down to help me. She doesn't live in the same town as me. She lives a couple hours away, but she's always up for an adventure. So she came down yesterday, and she was around for the last couple hours before the craft fair. So she helped me just kind of finish up. She ironed my tablecloth and just helped me with a couple little things as I was finishing up around my own house. And then she helped me pack everything up, move it over there, move it into the venue. So it was really nice to have her there, and also setting up. We were done with quite a while to spare. We had about an hour and a half window to set up our booth, but I did have a lot. There were people there that their little business was just kind of a catalog, or maybe a catalog and some little samples. So they really didn't have that much to set up. Whereas there was people like me who came in and had displays and 4,000 things to put on the table. So we really did have a lot to set up. And even though we had a lot of time left over, if she had not been there with me, I probably would have been right down to the last minute trying to get things set up. So I was very glad that I had her help there. She also, it was very nice that she was there. If I would have needed to get up and use the bathroom, or if I would have wanted to get up and get something to eat, she would have been there to watch the table. I did let her sit there by herself for a little bit while I just kind of went around and saw what the other vendors were selling. At one point, she realized that we were kind of running out of change, and so she said, well, I'm going to take a 20 and I'm going to go buy some coffee and see if I can get change for this 20. As it turned out, the vendor that was selling the coffee had also run out of change, so the person gave her the coffee for free, so then she had to stop by another table and buy some muffins to get some change. But it was just really nice to have her there to do those little things that if I was there by myself, I would have felt like, oh, I can't really go anywhere. I have to just stay with my stuff. So I would highly recommend having a partner there. I was going to make my 14-year-old daughter do it with me, but since my mom volunteered, I had her come instead. And in the end, I did invite my daughter to also come with us, but for some reason, she didn't want to hang out with her mom and her grandma on a Friday night. Rude. So I already told you my second thing, and this was a mistake I made, something I would do a little bit differently next time, is make sure that you have enough change. Honestly, I thought I had enough change. I started out with $50 in singles and $25 in fives. And I think my thought was, first, I had also gotten a square card reader. So I really did think that quite a few people would want to charge because that's what I would do probably, is if I was buying something, that cost more than $10 or so, I probably would want to charge it. But that was not the case. So my $75 in change was based on a couple of assumptions that turned out to be false. I thought that more people would use the credit cards, and I also wasn't really thinking about the fact that nobody's going to come with anything but $20 bills. I mean, honestly, I think one person gave us a 10 and everybody else just paid in 20s. And so I was kind of thinking, oh, I'll be giving change on some of the transactions, not giving a lot of change on all the transactions. So that's what it turned out to be. So next time I would probably start out with maybe $60-ish in ones, maybe $40 in fives, and then a few tens also. So that's what would probably work for me. Depending on how high priced your items are, your mileage may vary, but that's probably what I will do next time, is look for maybe $120, $130 in change to start out with. So the third thing is this Square Reader, and I would definitely recommend taking credit cards. Luckily, a lot of vendors are using the Square or a similar card reader now. Like my hairdresser has used one. My local yarn shop uses one. The coffee shop in the town that we live in uses it. So it really is becoming a pretty commonplace thing. So I don't think that people are at all, weirded out by the fact that just some lady at a craft show wants to take their credit card. So it is something that's pretty well accepted. But I think that my assumption that people would want to use credit cards was wrong, because I think that people don't necessarily expect it yet. So I think that people still, if they're going to a craft show, they still come with cash because they assume that everyone's going to take cash. Maybe some people will take charge cards or checks, but they know everybody's going to take cash. So I think people still prepare for that. But it's still definitely worth it. Square is free to order. You sign up on the internet with an account, and then they will mail you a Square Reader for free. And the processing fees they're cheaper than PayPal, cheaper than like the Etsy transaction fees that I pay when people use the Etsy payments, is what it's called. So I think the Square charged like 2.75%. So I can't find a downside with that. So that's the third one, is make sure that you have some way to accept credit cards. Number 4, and this is something that I would do a little differently. I did have different levels to my display. I had a pegboard that was maybe 2.5 feet tall. I had a couple of wooden crates. One turned on its side, so it was a little shorter. One turned on its end, so it was a little bit taller. So there were some different levels, so I liked that. But for the amount of things I had on my table, I really wish that I would have had more space to display it. So I really had like 3 large rows of just hats kind of stacked right after each other. So if I had more display space, like if I made my pegboard higher and then had some ways to attach hats to just kind of hang them up on the wall, I think that would have been a nice way to feature hats. I did have 3 mannequin heads like this, so that was handy, and I know that things sell better when people can actually see them, because of the 3 hats that I started out displaying, 2 of them sold. So, when you consider that maybe I only sold 4 or 5 hats, the whole evening, putting them on the heads, that really does make them more of a feature and people notice them more. Change up the levels, don't just display everything flat, and the more that you can set out so it is kind of set apart from the rest of your inventory, that really makes things more noticeable and attracts more attention. In with that, my fifth thing that I now know is that next time I would actually consider getting a extra large booth or a second table. At this craft fair, we had the option of paying for one table or two tables, and I think the difference was $10 or something like that. It wasn't a high fee. I honestly only chose one table because I thought, my stuff isn't that large. It's smallish. And plus I wanted to have a garment rack with me. So I thought, well, if I have two tables and a garment rack, that just seems like overkill. I probably won't fill up that much space. I would have filled up that much space, and it would have been a lot easier to see what I had. I only took 3 of the larger Rubbermaid tubs, the ones that are maybe 3 feet long, maybe not quite 3 feet, and a foot, like 16 inches or so across. So the big-ish ones, they're maybe 2 feet tall. So in my head, well, those 3 Rubbermaid tubs, that's not that much stuff. It really is that much stuff when you consider that, it's just a bunch of hats, a bunch of shawls, a bunch of, shoes and boot cuffs, booties, gloves, that kind of stuff. Everything was kind of small. And so if I would have had a second table, I could have displayed it in more obvious ways. So I would definitely consider that next time. So think about really not just how many boxes of stuff you're bringing, but really how are you going to display that, and is it going to fit well on one table, or do you need to consider getting a larger space? The sixth thing that I thought of is a little deeper than the rest. The sixth thing is be who you are. And I really do, I am conscious of this in my business. I really do try very hard to design things that I would wear, to choose yarns, to choose colors, to choose textures, styles, something that I personally would like. I've designed one pattern that I would have no interest in wearing. And I don't really remember what the impetus was, because I didn't do it for I wasn't collaborating with anyone. I don't really remember what it was. I think maybe I just had a certain yarn and I was thinking to myself, this yarn would look nice in this texture, and it probably just kind of came about there. But it wasn't something that when I made it, I was like, ooh, I really like this. I would wear this. And that is one of my least selling patterns that I have. So I've had that lesson over and over. Just be who you are. And in this craft fair, how that manifested itself was that about 2 weeks before the craft fair, I'm kind of looking at all the things that I have, and I'm thinking, this is a lot of really nice quality, really nice yarn, things that I would wear, things that I really like, things I like the feel of, things that are higher priced because of the quality, because of the time. And that's who I am. My brand is a high quality, it is reflective of my style, and I understand that. But the little voice in my head that tries to discourage me from being who I am says to me, look at these price tags. People are going to come to your booth and think that everything here is too expensive, and, maybe they want sock monkey hats. They don't want this fancy shawl over here. They want, lower priced items. They want, items of a different style. And so for the 2 weeks leading up to the craft show, I spent a lot of time trying to make lower priced items that were, maybe made from leftover yarn so that I could charge a little bit less, things that were made of bulkier yarn so that they didn't take as much time so that I could charge less. I was trying to make up things that would have lower price tags, and maybe things that kind of filled in gaps that I just didn't have. My main couple things were baby shoes, because I was thinking I don't have a ton of stuff for babies. And I asked my daughter, I said, look around here. What am I missing? What sort of knitted items are popular? What do people actually wear? Teenagers that you see, what do they wear? And she told me infinity scarves and boot cuffs. And I was like, well, I'm not going to knit a bunch of infinity scarves because I just don't have enough time for that. But I could knit a few pairs of boot cuffs. So I did knit those. Now, those baby shoes and those boot cuffs sold zero. Of all the things that I made in the month leading up to the craft show, with the craft show in mind, I'm pretty sure I sold zero of those knitted items. So ignore that little voice that says, you know, the thing that you are, the whatever your brand is about, that's not what the people want. Because the truth is, that is what the people want. The people that come to your booth are coming there because they want the thing that you do best. And for my brand, the thing that I do best is make things that I would like to wear myself, that are high quality, that are nice yarn, that are, you know, colors that I like. The people that like the things that I make are people that have similar tastes to me. So it makes no sense for me to, you know, try to make a lower quality, cheaper, faster product because that's not what they want. So don't be anything other than who you are. Number 7, with that in mind, still you want to have some sort of hook at your table. So I know there is some truth to the little voice that was telling me people don't want to spend that much money. I knew that there would be people that would walk by my table, look at a couple of, you know, items and price tags, and if those prices were out of their range, they would want to keep on walking. So you do want to have something that makes people want to stop for a minute at your booth. So maybe they don't initially think, ooh, a bunch of hand knit stuff, I want that. Maybe they walk by you and they go, winter stuff, I don't need any winter stuff. So what you want is something that will make them stop. So for my booth, it was candy. And that was one other thing that I did make in the couple weeks leading up to the craft fair, was a lot of batches of candy. So I have 2 candy recipes. They're Martha Stewart recipes. So you know they're good. They're full of butter. They're really, really tasty. So I made quite a few batches of those candies. I went with caramels and toffee. So caramels and toffee. And for samples, I wrapped up, like, you know, these caramels are pretty big. I probably made samples that were a 4th or a 5th the size of one of these caramels. So still big enough that you can definitely taste whether they're good or not, which, spoiler, they're really good. And then I had a little snowman container because it was a Christmas themed craft show. Had a little snowman full of these caramels. So, and had a little snowman actually sticking out of the snowman container that had a little flag that said samples. So people, if they noticed that, they could stop, they could take a sample. We could talk about how tasty that candy is. And the candy did sell. So I had those samples. I encouraged people to take a sample, and the candy really did sell. So that was a lower priced item that would make people stop, and maybe while they're eating that caramel, they look around and then they realize, oh, maybe I do need some winter accessories, or they see the candy for sale and they're like, well, maybe I need some of this candy. So I would encourage you to have something at your table that will grab people and make them just stop for a second and pause and maybe take a look around. Along with that, my 8th thing on my list, and this is something that I feel like I did do pretty well. When people approach your table, say hi and then let them lead. So there's people that want to chat with you. There's people that want to ask you, you know, which hat looks best on me, or do you have anything for babies, or, you know, what color do you think, should I pick the brown hat or the blue hat? So there are a lot of people that want to talk to you at shows like this, but then there are also people that like just kind of feel like they want to look around and they don't want to have a personal relationship with every vendor that's sitting behind a table. So I would greet people as they came up, say hello. You know, if there was any other obvious thing to say, I would do that, but then I would just let them lead. If they wanted to continue that conversation, I was happy to do that. But if they just, you know, seemed like they didn't really want to talk, that was totally fine too. So take the lead of your customers, because you really do want to make them feel comfortable. And with some people, like I'm one of those people, like I really don't want, if I'm trying to look at something, I don't want the salesperson to be talking to me. I feel like that is more interaction than I want to have. So, you know, I might feel a little bit differently at a craft show where the person that made the things is the person sitting behind the table. But like at a store, I don't want the salespeople all over me. So, just do your best to make people feel comfortable and let them take the lead on what that entails. Number 9 was probably my biggest mistake. Number 9 is if you are selling any sort of product that a person is going to put on their body, you have to have a mirror at your booth. And I knew this. Earlier in the week, I was thinking, oh, I need to remember to pack. My daughter has this like little freestanding mirror in her bedroom, and I thought, on Friday, I need to remember to take that with me, and then I just totally forgot. So instead, when people were saying like, oh, how does this hat look on me? I would say, oh, I can show you. Hold on, let me bring up my camera app on my phone. So I would like flip it around selfie style and then let them look at their image in my phone. So luckily, like that was okay. That worked all right. But it would have been a lot better if I had a mirror that they could just, not have to ask me for some way to see themselves, and they could just do it on their own. So if you're going to sell something that people put on their body, let them see how it's going to look on their body. Number 10 is it's okay to try things out for sale. If you're not really sure if something is going to sell or not, don't make 10 or 20 of them. Just make a few and see how it goes. Something that I tried out yesterday was, so I had made pom-poms. I think I showed you those on the last podcast, little fur pom-poms. And most of them are intended to go on the back of a hat, but some of them are small. Now you could totally put those on the back of like a baby or toddler hat, but I thought I'll try them out on keychains, because that's something that I've seen before, is little keychains that have furry or yarn pom-poms on the end of them. And so I took 4 of the little tiny pom-poms that I have, and I, kind of fixed them up in the little keychain. It has a lobster clasp, and it had a split ring, the thing that you put your keys on, and then another ring to attach the pom-pom to those 2 things. And then I, put those on the display, and as it turned out, none of them sold, and none of them were even, like, nobody commented on them. There seemed to be no interest in them at all. So I was very glad that, it's an idea that I had. I didn't waste a lot of time making them. I didn't waste a lot of supplies. I actually can attach strings right back to the pom-poms and still sell them as hat pom-poms. So there's really no harm in me having made them, but I would have been disappointed if I had made like 20 of them and none of them sold. So don't be afraid to try something out, but don't feel like you have to go overboard offering a ton of them. Just, see how they sell. And if they do sell, then make some for the next craft fair. Here's a bonus 11th thing that I just thought of as I was talking. And along with that mirror thing, I actually did this, but I didn't do it early enough. So as you think of things that need to go with you to the craft fair, just make a list on your notes app on your phone so that, you can keep track. Because as you're making things and as you're thinking about your display, for the week or so leading up to the craft fair, I was thinking of a lot of things, and I didn't start writing them down until like the day before the craft fair. So if I had been consciously making this list throughout the week, I would have had that mirror on the list a lot earlier. So I would just encourage you that as soon as you know you're doing a craft show, just make that list, and that way when the day comes, you know exactly what you need to pack, and you can be on your way and know that you didn't forget anything. Luckily, the craft fair was only like a mile from my house, so when I forgot my pegboard, I could call my teenage son and ask him to drive that up to the venue and bring that to me. So I realized I forgot the mirror, and I thought, I already asked him to come out here. I'm not going to make him bring me a mirror too, but yeah, that was my mistake. Those are the 10 things that I learned or that I did with the craft fair. Why don't we talk about some of the things that I have made in the last couple weeks? And like I told you before, I concentrated on boot cuffs and baby shoes. So you've seen this sort of baby booty before. These are called the baby gashalash boots, and they are my favorite like baby gift to make. So cute. I used my new labels to sew one on the back there. I shortened my logo, so I'm not sure that I'll completely transition to this little TNT Trappings and Trinkets logo, but you may be seeing that around, and it is definitely what's going to be on my tags, because my regular Trappings and Trinkets, like, that's just too many letters for a little tag like this. So those are crocheted, and not much to say about them. They're really cute. The lovely crow is the person that writes the pattern, and the pattern's great. I would highly recommend it. Then I have these shoes, and these are called, the pattern is called Sarsha's Booties. These are little crisscross, like both of those will come undone to put the baby's foot in, and then you button them back up. So they have these little loops on the end. So the ends of the straps look like that, and then they just crisscross and button. I actually guess I did modify the pattern, because for the little loops, so these are knitted. For the little loops, after I bound, well, did I bind off? Yeah, so you bind off around the top, so it be here. So I bind off, and then that tail that's sticking out here, I put away my knitting needle, took out my little crochet hook, and I made like a little maybe 6 or 7 stitch crochet chain, and then I fastened it down to the other side. And then over here, I made another little 6 or 7 chain and fastened it to both sides of this strap as well. So I don't think that was in the pattern, but I don't remember what they did tell you, how they wanted you to make the loops. So the little crochet chain works really well, and it's sturdy, and it's not so floppy that, you know, it's nice and firm, so it's not, the buttons aren't just gonna fall out of the crochet chain. So those are very cute, very easy to make, little garter stitch knit, and I made them in a couple different sizes. I think the red and the blue ones were like a baby size 3 shoe. I think that's like 6 to 9 months. These were baby size 2, so 3 to 6 months, I guess. And this one is Knit Picks Chroma fingering. I think this is Socks That Rock, and this one was, I'll put it on the screen because I know what the yarn is, but I just can't think of the name of it. It's something, I think it's something to do with hiking. But anyway, so those were all really easy to make and fun and adorable. So really nice for baby gifts or whatever. In the realm of boot cuffs, I basically made 2 styles. I had the lacy top and the textured. So these textured ones, these are just called Easy Knit Boot Cuffs. And this is just some little columns of textured stitch. I use these buttons. I bought those in Mississauga, Ontario, at a store called Nitka, maybe 4 years ago. I think that was 2013 that we were there. So I love those buttons, and very easy to make. These are like an adult medium or large. Like, I would say I'm a like size 8 in pants, and these fit me, but they still have plenty of room. So maybe if you wore a 10 or a 12, you could also fit in these very easily. As for the lacy top boot cuffs, this is what the pattern actually looks like. And these are just called lace boot cuff. So it's a crocheted ribbing, and then there's this crocheted lace pattern. Let me give you some skin in the background so you can kind of see where those holes are. So it's just this little scallop design. I think the lace is 3 rows or 3 rounds. But the thing about this is the crocheted ribbing does not give too much. There's not a lot of stretch there. So for the other pairs of lace boot cuffs that I made, I changed to a knit ribbing. So you can see that the knit ribbing has a lot more stretch to it. See, it pulls in a lot more, and it can stretch a lot more. So that just means that there's a wider range of leg sizes that can fit into this one than can fit into this one. This one really, I decided that this was like a child, like an 8 to 12-year-old child size. And this one was an adult small, which I would say like size 2, 4, maybe size 6 in pants would be what I would consider an adult small. These are meant to kind of come out the top of your boots and like closely fitting boots and be folded over like that. So when I show them to you like this, they don't look that great because this is the wrong side, but when you wear them, you fold them over and they look like that. So I made them in the orange and gray, and then I also made a neutral pair. So I figure you're probably wearing them against dark colored pants, either denim or maybe like a black pant or brown pant. So something neutral would look nice with that. So I like the way those turned out, and I would definitely recommend doing a ribbed cuff instead of the crocheted cuff. Obviously, if you're not a knitter, that's not going to be as easy, but if you know how to knit and you can crochet, then that works really well. So those are all my styles of boot cuffs, and I already showed you the candy. Oh, by the way, I did have some candy left over. I didn't sell all of the bags, so I don't know, maybe I have 6 or 8 bags left. So I thought that I would go ahead and put some up in my Etsy shop. I don't know if that's a thing that people are interested in or not, but I thought it's either that or put it all in the freezer and wait for me to eat it. So I already have it so nicely packaged up, and I really shouldn't be eating it anyway. So this is just a new thing I'm trying out in the Etsy shop. The bags of toffee are half-pound bags, and the bags of caramel are 3/4 of a pound bag. So they're all the same price. So if you're interested, there will be a few bags available in the shop. What else? Oh, new pattern. That's this pattern I was showing you on my severed mannequin head here. This is a new pattern, and it is going to be out this week. So probably not today, but maybe tomorrow. So be on the lookout for this new hat, a textured slouchy hat. This one is called At the Game. And the reason it's called At the Game is because it was inspired by a hat that I saw while I was sitting in the bleachers at my kid's school. So we actually weren't at a game, but usually when you're sitting in the bleachers at the stadium, you're at a game. So At the Game hat. It comes in, I think, 3 different sizes, and it does have a few different textures. So you got little just ribbing here. This is a reverse stockinette. And this right here is a little brioche. Now, don't be scared. I promise you, this is easy brioche. All this has to do is knit 2 together, purl 2 together, yarn over. That is all you have to know how to do to be able to do this. So I tell you step by step. It's not like I say brioche for 8 rows. I say, slip this stitch, do a yarn over, knit 2 together. Like, it is that laid out for you. So if you've ever thought, maybe I'd like to try some brioche, this might be a good way to start, because also you don't have to worry about, am I using color A or color B? It's all the same yarn. So that makes it easier than the 2-color brioche, and it's in the round, and brioche in the round is easier to do than flat brioche. So I would highly recommend this as a first brioche project. And the brioche sections do not have any increases or decreases in them. So it is definitely doable by anyone. I would even say like an adventurous beginner that isn't afraid to read some directions and follow what they say. An adventurous beginner can do this pattern. And then you can do a little extra pom-pom, or if you like fur pom-poms, you can get fur pom-pom to put on there. But this is just a nice slouchy hat. It's not too tight. I'm wearing, I believe there's a size that's like almost 19 inches, like 18.75. And I am wearing that, and my head is 22.5 inches around. So this is meant to wear with some negative ease, and it's still like, it's not tight on my head. I could still stretch it plenty. So I don't feel like this hat is too constrictive. And so here's a little extra thing. So what's going to happen this month is I have 4 hat patterns ready to go, and the hat patterns are going to be released 1 per week, and they're going to be available as an ebook. Now, if you want to buy the ebook up front, then each pattern as it's released will be added to the ebook. So every week you'll just find a new hat pattern in your library. And if you buy the ebook, then I will mail you, wherever you live in the whole world, I will mail you one of my little hat tags. It says handmade with TNT, and it has a little firework there on the, not firework, it has a little dynamite there on the second T. So you can sew a little label onto your hat that you make, because even though you made it, it's still made with TNT because you made it with a Trappings and Trinkets pattern. So, and I have, whenever you buy using PayPal as your checkout, PayPal gives your mailing address. So you don't even have to do anything. I will just look at PayPal and I will mail you a tag. Now, I have grayish tags like that. And I have brown tags. So if you have a preference, then just send me a message on Ravelry when you make your purchase of the ebook and say, ooh, I'd really like the gray tag, or I'd really like the brown tag. The gray tag doubles over so you can, it's visible on both sides. Like if I were to flip this hem up, it would have the same tag on the inside as it does on the outside. The brown tags are only one-sided. So if you want a flip-up brim, then don't get the brown tag because it won't be on the, it'll look like the wrong side. So anyway, make sure that you send me a Ravelry message on the same day that you make the purchase of the ebook, because if you wait a couple days, then your tag is probably already in the mail. So make sure you do it right away. The price of the ebook is the same as the price of 2 individual patterns. So if you are interested in 2 or more of the hat patterns, it's going to be the same price or cheaper to buy it as an ebook. And then the patterns will just magically appear in your library. The ebook will continue to be available. It's not like you have to buy it the first week, but you wouldn't want to buy like the single pattern the first week and the single pattern the second week, and then the third week realize, oh, I like all these patterns. Like, so if you are interested in 2 or more of those patterns, then ebook it is. If not, if you just want one of them, just get one of them. That's my advertisement for today. Anything else? Gosh, I feel like it's only been 2 weeks since I podcasted, but I feel like it's been a lot longer than that. We've had just a lot of life has happened between now and then. So one night I'm in my kitchen. I'm standing at my stove, and when you make caramel, there's maybe an hour's worth of time where you have to be stirring the caramel. So, I'm standing there stirring the caramel. I'm probably also like listening to a podcast or reading something on my phone or whatever, but I was kind of distracted. So I'm stirring, and then I hear this like pop come from the wall area of the kitchen, and then the light above my oven goes out and the light in the next room goes out, and I was like, what happened here? And so my husband was home, so he comes in, he's like, oh, I think a fuse just went out, so I'll go flip the breaker back on. So he goes down to the basement. I'm still stirring, and the light in the next room comes back on, and as soon as that happens, fire starts shooting out of this outlet that is on the wall, like 4 feet away from the oven. And it was like picture a sparkler and like those sparks, those little, bits of fire that comes flying off of a sparkler. And those things are shooting out of the outlet. So I'm yelling like, no, turn the breaker back off, turn it off. And he comes upstairs, what's wrong? And I was like, I don't know, like fire is shooting out of that outlet over there. What do we do? So he wanted to pull the outlet out of the wall and cap off the wires just so that we knew everything was safe for the night while we're sleeping. But he could not, for the life of him, get the outlet out of the wall. He was pulling out with pliers. He was in there with his hands. He had all sorts of tools, could not get it out of the wall. So we decide, okay, it's probably fine. The house probably will not burn down. And I called the electrician the next day and told him the situation. So he came out. And he said what had happened was, it was a GFI outlet, and he said that those outlets are a little more complex, and probably the weather made things swell and contract, and somewhere in that swelling and contracting, a screw kind of worked itself out of where it was supposed to be, and it got into a place where it was not supposed to be, and what happened was that screw ended up touching the electricity. And so that's what tripped the breaker. As soon as that, screw was electrified, the whole outlet shut down. And then when we forced it back on, then the outlet was like, fire, fire. So he just took the outlet out of there and he replaced it with a standard outlet and said that, fingers crossed, that that sort of thing should not happen again, because this is a much more simple outlet system. But yeah, I was a little like, I do not like it when fire starts shooting out of my kitchen wall. On the needles, here is what I've cast on now that my craft show knitting is complete and I can change my focus to something else. I decided to work on something that is fun and just for me, and I just cannot wait, because this is a finished object that I want. This is you've seen this a couple times before, because I had started this object previously. Oops, I've dropped a couple stitches here, so I'm just gonna get those right back on the needles while I'm sitting here. This is my Love is Love set, and the base is Dream in Color Cosette. And so you can see the purple here, and we've got blue, like a purplish blue, there's green, there's yellow, there's orange and red. So anyway, lots of different rainbow colors. And this is the Calla Luna pattern. And you've seen this before, because I was just going to do it straight up rainbow on the body. But as it turned out, I got about half of the body knit, and I realized it's not going to reach up where I want it to reach to, which is like high bust. It was going to reach to about right under my bust, and I didn't want all this to be the black color. So I waited until my dark, super dark gray. It's really not quite black. It is very much a dark gray. And in this light, it looks almost purple tinted, but it's not. It's very purely dark gray. So I waited till I got this, and I'm just putting in some little stripes. So I did start with a blackish gray border, and then after the purple is done, I'll put in a couple stripes of black. I'll just call it black. I'll put in a couple stripes of dark gray. Then I'll do the dark purplish blue, put in a couple stripes of dark gray. So after each little color stripe, there'll be a couple stripes of the dark gray, and that's going to help get that length up to where I need it. And then it'll also tie that rainbow in with the dark gray that is going to be the sleeves and the very top of the bodice, or the top of the yoke. So I'm very excited about that, and that's in my little Foxy Trappings and Trinkets project bag. I think that's about it. That's all I have here to show you. So thanks for spending some time with me. Speaking of just be who you are, I was thinking about, so at the end of each of my podcasts, and I think, like, sincerely, the first couple podcasts, I think I just waved goodbye and said bye in my little sing-songy voice, which came very naturally those first couple podcasts. But ever since then, it's been kind of like, why do I always say the same thing? So I think it was just like, that was kind of my sign-off. And just because I did it those first couple podcasts, I was like, okay, I guess this is just what we do. So ever since then, it's taken me, like I always do, like 3 or 4 takes at the end, because I feel like this feels unnatural. Why am I still saying this? So it's turned into this weird thing. So I'm not going to sign off like that anymore, because it feels weird and it feels like it's not who I am. So at the end of this podcast, I will bid you farewell. I hope that you do have some fun with your knitting and that you find some fun patterns to make. Maybe you want to make a new hat. Maybe you want to get a whole ebook's worth of hat patterns, and I'll send you a little thing in the mail. Thanks for spending time with me. I hope to see you again in a couple weeks. Adios.